Mitchell bluffing on the double. Here's Shaq baseline drive, attack, missed the shot, get his own rebound, under the hoop, you know a dunk's.
Often called the most dominant player to ever set foot on a basketball court, Shaquille O'Neal was always a beast during his playing days. From day one until the middle of his 30s, he was unstoppable one-on-one because he was simply the most imposing physical force on the hardwood floor. But while everyone knows Shaq could never be contained on offense, there was one version of the Big Diesel that stood above every other version. That was in 2000 when he struck fear into the hearts of everyone in the league. Chapter 1: Shaq's High School and College Years. To be fair, Shaq was always a monster. He was pushing his weight around late in high school and went on to dominate the collegiate ranks with LSU as a young beast standing over 7 feet tall and weighing around 300 pounds. The scary part was that he could outrun and outjump everyone else. He was simply a beast who pushed his body around and could not be contained by any other center, even the ones we would consider giants under normal circumstances. By his senior year in college, he was averaging 24.1 points, 14 rebounds, and 5.2 blocks. Those numbers earned him the #1 overall pick in 1992, simply because the league had not seen anyone like him. As strong as prime Wilt Chamberlain was, not even he was as heavy and imposing as Shaq was when he was about to enter the league. That was why the Orlando Magic were willing to build an entire team around O'Neal, who didn't waste time establishing himself as one of the best centers in the league. Chapter 2: Shaq's Orlando Magic Years. Shaq was immediately dominant from day one, putting up monstrous stats as a rookie and winning the Rookie of the Year for the Orlando Magic. But what made him special during his Orlando years was his sheer athleticism. Shaq could run the floor like a guard and would not even hesitate to take the ball from one coast to another after a rebound. Whenever he did that, he was an unstoppable freight train no one in the league would dare get in front of because he could plow through any defense on his way to a thunderous dunk. Speaking of dunks, NBA rims had not seen anything like Shaq. He broke multiple backboards, forcing the league to reassess the durability of their rims. It was because of Shaq that we have breakaway rims that absorb impact from a man his size. Orlando Shaq muscled his way to the scoring leadership in 1995, taking the Magic all the way to the NBA Finals at only 23 years old.
Drexler will go to the line. The crowd sensing the kill, but O'Neal.
While he had Penny Hardaway assisting him as the team's secondary scorer and primary playmaker, everyone knew Shaq was the reason for the Magic's success that season. He was physically dominating every other center in the NBA, including Defensive Player of the Year winners and MVPs like David Robinson. It did not matter how tall or how long another center was because Shaq was always bigger and stronger. And the man did this during the 90s, often called the golden age of centers because of the star power in that position during that era. The only other center O'Neal openly acknowledged as better than him was Hakeem Olajuwon, who was responsible for sweeping the Magic in the 1995 Finals. But while Shaq lost that title series, everyone knew he was going to be the next big thing in the league because he had the star power, charisma, and personality. Chapter 3: Shaq's Move to join the Los Angeles Lakers. Shaq craved the spotlight, wanting to be in movies and commercials. He became one of the biggest personalities in the NBA because of his larger-than-life persona and incredible sense of humor. Michael Jordan was probably the only one who had a bigger star presence than O'Neal. But in Shaq's case, he wanted to be bigger. So, wanting to play under the bright lights of LA while rubbing shoulders with celebrities, the self-proclaimed Superman of the NBA went to the Lakers to follow in the footsteps of some of the greatest centers the league has ever seen.
Bounce the ball to Shaq, just away from everybody, goes in the air for a 10-foot jump of the won't go, picks it up to himself, wants to the back up, no!
Basically, the pressure was on him to deliver a title to LA. His move to LA was seemingly controversial because people thought he was simply doing it for the money. While that may have been true, what was also true was the fact that Shaq's star power was too much for Orlando to contain. So, Orlando Shaq became a myth of a man who could run the floor like a guard at 300 pounds and break baskets with his dunks. Then came Lakers Shaq, who eventually became the best version of O'Neal. Chapter 4: Shaq's 1999-2000 season. He may have struggled during his first few seasons in LA, but by the 1999-2000 season, there was no one capable of denying him. This also coincided with two important events in the history of the Lakers. First, they hired Phil Jackson as their new head coach a year after he won the 1998 title with the Chicago Bulls. Second, Kobe Bryant, the 17-year-old kid they drafted in 1996, grew into a legitimate superstar. But everyone knew that team ran on Shaq's diesel-like engine. At that point, Shaq was at his physical prime. Of course, O'Neal was always dominant and strong, especially when he was with the Magic. He was bigger, faster, and more explosive than any other center. But during the 1999-2000 season, as a 27-year-old big man, he was the perfect blend of size and power.
Very aggressive, looking for the steal. Collapse on O'Neal to the reverse. He's hit.
O'Neal, who was around 290 pounds of lean muscle when he entered the league in 1993, turned into an even more unstoppable force for the Lakers during the 1999-2000 season. He lifted weights, added more muscle to his frame, and continued working on his fundamentals. So, throughout most of that season, he was well beyond 325 pounds, becoming one of the heaviest players the league had ever seen. But he wasn't even fat. He was simply a muscular and towering 7'1" center whose arms and shoulders were much larger than any other big man in the league. To that end, he could body up any big man in the league, even other 7-footers who were already big in terms of conventional standards. Shaq could dunk on their heads after carving space out with his strength. Just ask Chris Dudley, who was on the other end of one of his most disrespectful Shaq dunks of all time. But that wasn't the only reason he was special. Shaq was a graceful and skilled center who had a lot of post moves that made him even harder to guard. While his go-to move was his drop step after a few dribbles, he mastered what he called Black Tornado, which was his baseline spin move. His drop step and Black Tornado were so unguardable because he had the shoulder size and strength that allowed him to carve space with a few series of moves. And once he was close to the basket, he could dunk the ball over any defender. It also helped that Phil Jackson allowed the Lakers to play off of O'Neal. Using the triangle offense, Jackson filled the floor up with shooters to space the floor for O'Neal. He had guys like Derek Fisher, Kobe Bryant, Glenn Rice, Ron Harper, and Robert Horry waiting outside, allowing Shaq to either attack his defender in single coverage or make plays whenever other defenders converged on him. Shaq's offense favored O'Neal's ability to play down in the low post, either as a scorer or as a playmaker, making him even more unstoppable than he ever was. Sure, he may have slowed down in terms of his speed and explosiveness, but the added muscle and the more methodical offense the Lakers played were great for O'Neal's talents. He didn't have to always run the floor hard to get his shots. As long as he made himself available in post-up situations while reading the floor well, he was always in the right position to score. Then there was Kobe Bryant, who finally turned into a true superstar. Kobe, at 21, was the Lakers' second option. The rising shooting guard was also unstoppable one-on-one out on the perimeter because of his skill, speed, and athleticism. Kobe averaged 22.5 points that season and was one of the best at setting O'Neal up.
Harper playing with 2 fouls, gets it into Kobe.
His ability to break defenses on the perimeter forced opposing teams to collapse on him, allowing Shaq to have more room inside the paint. So basically, O'Neal had a better version of Penny Hardaway alleviating pressure off of him that season. But while Kobe was brilliant and Jackson was a great tactician on the bench, everything still started and ended with Shaq. He averaged a league-leading 29.7 points, 13.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and 3 blocks that season. Shaq also led the league in player efficiency rating and went on to win the MVP by a landslide. He almost became the first player to win the award unanimously, had it not been for one voter who gave Allen Iverson a first-place vote. Nevertheless, Shaq led LA to a 67-win season, turning the Lakers into championship favorites. True enough, he had one of the most memorable runs during the 2000 postseason. Chapter 5: Shaq's legendary postseason run. The Lakers saw tough competition in the first round when they faced the Sacramento Kings, a team that matched up well with them. While Shaq finished Game 1 with 46 points, the Kings bounced back and eventually forced a do-or-die Game 5 in an era prior to the 7-game playoff format. In Game 5, he simply took over and scored 32 points and grabbed 18 rebounds to seal the deal for the Lakers. Then, in the second round, no one on that Phoenix Suns team could match up with him. He scored 37 or more points in the first 3 games, averaging 37.3 points and 17 rebounds to give the Lakers a quick 3-0 lead. This was enough to give the Lakers a 5-game series win over the Suns as they were heading into the conference finals to face the Portland Trail Blazers, the true test of this team's championship medal. The Blazers didn't have the most talented roster, but they had gritty and tough players like Scottie Pippen, Steve Smith, Arvydas Sabonis, and Rasheed Wallace. While Portland did allow the Big Diesel to go off for 41 points in Game 1, they made everything harder for him from then on. Portland forced 7 games from the Lakers, leading to a memorable Game 7 bout that was fought hard on the defensive end. With Shaq struggling in the game, finishing with only 18 points and 9 rebounds, Kobe took over and led the team to a fourth-quarter comeback. Then came the most memorable moment in the Shaq and Kobe duo era.
The Lakers have 2. Bryant to Shaq!
Bryant crossed Pippen over on the perimeter. Then, as the defense collapsed on the young and athletic shooting guard, O'Neal positioned himself near the basket. Bryant, who would have normally tried to shoot the ball over multiple defenders, threw a lob pass instead. Shaq caught the ball and dunked it through the hoop in what is often called the Bryant to Shaq connection. This alley-oop play catapulted the Lakers into the 2000 finals. That win over the Blazers solidified them as possible favorites for the championship. But then they had to go through an experienced Indiana Pacers team that had been through wars with Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls during the 90s. As competitive as that Pacers squad was, it had no answer for O'Neal. The big man had 43 points and 19 rebounds in Game 1 and then finished with 40 points and 24 rebounds in Game 2. No one could push this monster out of the paint, leading to one of the most controversial moments in finals history. But since the Pacers couldn't do anything about O'Neal, they had to do something about Bryant. Jalen Rose stuck his foot into Kobe's landing space, injuring Bryant's ankle. While that was ruled an accident back then, Rose has since admitted that he did this on purpose. With Kobe injured in Game 3, the Pacers took a win. Kobe returned in Game 4 to help his team win an overtime game that featured O'Neal putting up 36 points and 21 rebounds. But the Pacers fought back to extend the series to 6 games. That was when Shaq took over, unwilling to give Indiana a chance to win it in 7 games. He had 41 points and 12 rebounds in Game 6 to finally put the Pacers away for good. Shaq averaged crazy numbers in 6 games. He had 38 points, 16.7 rebounds, and 2.7 blocks while shooting 61.1% from the field. There was no denying that he deserved to win the Finals MVP during his first championship run with the Los Angeles Lakers. But that entire 2000 playoff run was simply magical for the Big Diesel. Normally, centers struggle to up their game in the playoffs because refs allow more physicality. But Shaq answered the call and averaged 30.7 points and 15.4 rebounds all playoffs long to prove he could take his game to the highest possible level whenever he needed to.
Rick Fox in the front court.
He was simply unstoppable in 2000, proving that he was indeed the best player in the world in the next few years after Jordan retired. So, while people try to hype Orlando Shaq as quite possibly the best version of O'Neal, that 2000 version was simply on another level. Orlando Shaq had athleticism and mobility, but 2000 Shaq was a monster who imposed his will inside the paint and could never find an equal who could stop him. This was the right moment where size, weight, and athleticism all converged to form the perfect NBA center. And this version of O'Neal set the tone for him and the Lakers in the next 2 seasons as they won a three-peat. Shaq could not sustain the level of play he had in 2000 because injuries and wear and tear eventually got to him, especially after he gained more weight. That's why, despite the fact that he was still dominant throughout the entire three-peat, that 2000 version was on an entirely different playing field. And we could even make a case for 2000 Shaquille O'Neal as the greatest center ever, even when compared to the likes of Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Hakeem Olajuwon.